Welcome to This Club Sucks, grief support for parents after the lasagnas are long gone. I am your host, Melissa Monroe, here with my co-host, Alexandria Seamock. Each week we record our child loss chat on Twitter Spaces, where we explore topics around grief and trauma. Whether you are a bereaved parent, want to support bereaved parents, or exploring other sources of grief, we'll be here holding space after the lasagnas are long gone.
Oh, this club
Our guest, Sharon, is a death doula, funeral celebrant, and end-of-life supporter. Sharon, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone? And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm very honored that you chose me to be in your space this morning and this afternoon, wherever you are listening in this wonderful world of ours. It is actually 4 a.m. Friday morning here in Australia, where I am located. So it is an early morning for me, which is quite okay. I'm more than happy to be up at this hour of the morning to share everything that is death doula with you all. And I am as Melissa said, a death doula, an end-of-life consultant, and very recently a funeral celebrant. I was on a service yesterday. I did a burial for a lovely older lady, and I was very honored to be there at the end of her life. I just wish that she was able to utilize the services of a death doula, which she didn't have. She died in a nursing home, unfortunately, but we just need to make sure that more people are aware of the services that are available to them at the end of life. And I really wish to make sure that more people can know about the services of a death doula and what we can provide and the services that we do and the support that we can give and how we can complement other services. We're not there to replace other means of support, hospice care and nurses and things like that. We're a complementary care. We don't replace them, we support them. So death doula is something that is very close to my heart. I'm not too sure whether everybody is aware of what a death doula does. We provide holistic support at the end of life. We do not provide medical care. We purely provide support in that we can help the families in coming in and sitting vigil with the dying. We can do anything else that you provide that you need around the house. We can do your shopping if that's what you need to do. We can cook meals for you if we need that for you. We can do other sorts of things. If you need to go away and take care of other family issues, we can do that as well. And we're also there to just hold space with the dying. And we explain what is happening at the end of life for the dying, which I think is very important for those who want to die at home, who don't want to die in hospitals or nursing homes or hospice care or palliative care, that sort of thing, which I think is very important that people have that ability and that choice.
It's extremely important, and it's some really important work that you do, Sharon. And I'm very appreciative that you're here today to talk about it. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you might hold space for the person that's dying and what that might look like in a typical day of you sitting with someone dying and holding space for them? Can you give us a little bit more detail about what that might look like?
That can be whatever the person who is dying requests. We can be sitting in silence We can be reading their favorite book. We could be reading, there could be music playing in the background for them. We could be reading poems. They could be getting their feet massaged. They could have friends coming to visit. They could just be watching the sunset. It could be as simple as even just having a candle burning that has a scent that reminds them of something that is simple in their memories. It's just making sure that there is a remembrance of them and a peaceful time, that people know that they are loved, that they are supported, that they are surrounded by people who care for them, that people who support them, that somebody is there for them, that people are looking after them, and that they know that they are needed and wanted. There is nothing more than a person knowing that at the end of their life that they are wanted. No matter what they did during their life, at the end of their life, they are needed and wanted, and they are important. And that is what is the most important thing about death. They could have been a horrible parent. They could have been a horrible person to somebody else. They could have done terrible crimes, but at the end of their life, they still mattered, and they need to be treated with love, respect, and honor at death. And by holding space, we make them honored. And that is a simple process of just being calm, making sure that everything is peaceful, and that we are doing things for them. It is just a quiet time. But then again, they may not want it quiet. They might say, no, I don't want quiet. I want it to be raucous. I want people to be dancing. I want my friends and family to remember me the way I was. I want my holding of space to be vibrant. I want people to be coming in. I want to have music blaring. I want them to remember me as I was when I was younger, dancing and singing. I want music to be playing loudly. I want everybody to be jovial. I want it to be a happy scene. I want people to be singing constantly around me. It's them to be remembered in their final moments the way that they were in life at their best. And it's that time for them to be truly remembered in that space is how we remember them. And when we hold space for them, it's that special moment just for them.
That's beautiful, Sharon. And I wonder, it brings up an important point for me. You were mentioning that no matter what someone has done in their life, what kind of crimes, who they've hurt, etc. So I wonder how many times, how much during your work you are sitting there with the dying kind of while they assess their actions and maybe come to terms with some things that were maybe hard for them to face earlier in their life, and how that is for them and how you are able to support them in those times, because I think that's really important.
It is. A lot of times they reflect on their life and they talk to me about what they have done during their time. And of course, it is not me to judge what they have done. If they served prison sentences for their time, they have served their time. I am not a court. I am not a judge. I am not a jury. I cannot pass judgment on what they've done. They have already done that. They already served their crimes on that. I listen with compassion. Whether or not they deserved the crime, the punishment that they got is not my decision to make. They obviously at the time were charged, they were tried, and they were convicted of something, and at that point, that is what happened. At the point of death, they are now a different person and they need to be treated as a different person. So, compassion is what is key. Everybody deserves the respect and the honor of being treated as a human individual, just like anybody else that would be honored as if they had not treated as if they had not committed a crime. At that point, they need the same compassion in dying, and that's the way that they are treated. They are nobody different. They are nobody different at that point of death than a loving grandmother who had committed no other crimes in life. They are scared. They are dying. They are telling you their story and are atoning for their sins, and they want forgiveness. And if I, as the death doula that is sitting with them as they tell their final stories, am the one who can say, you are forgiven, and that gives them the peace that they require, then I'm happy that I'm the person that can give them that peace that they are searching for. And I'm happy with that.
Wow, that's really powerful. It brings up a question for me, which is how you manage your self-care when you are in the midst of helping a family and a dying person through this big transition. It's big emotional work, and I'm sure it takes a toll. And so I wonder what you do in your life to stay healthy and in a place where you can have that immense peace and compassion to be present for folks when they are really facing something terrifying.
Before I became a death doula, I also did a counselling degree. And part of that was doing a supervision course, which means that when you do counselling, you have to actually do counselling. You actually have to go and get counselling yourself. And as part of that, you get supervision. So once a month, you go and you get counselling. And you go and get a supervisor, and you go and you speak with them and you debrief. You offload to them. And they basically talk you through everything that you have witnessed and spoken about with your clients at that point in time. And they help you come to terms with anything difficult that you have met in the counselling world. I have adopted the similar approach with my doula business in that I debrief with other doulas. I don't tell them details. It's all definitely nobody's details get shared. I don't tell them names. I don't tell them information that is identifying, but we chat about what experiences we have shared. And we do this over coffee. And we catch up once every couple of weeks and we talk about what we've gone through and what has happened. And we just share what has happened in the last couple of weeks that we've all been through. And if there's been any hard times we've faced, any way that we could help each other at the time. And of course, if there's something that we're having trouble with at a specific time, we always call each other and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. I need a little bit extra support at the moment. And we've always got each other's back. It's always great to have that network of people that we can call on and say, hey, I just need a little bit extra at the moment. And they're always there for each other. I also have a fantastic family support group here. My husband is amazing. He supports me with my endeavors here and my kids. And I have my downtime here. I just say I need to get away, and I do things for myself. I get the massages, I get my pampering done, those sorts of things where I can just go away on my own for myself for a little while and just relax, and then I'm recharged. But you've got to talk about what's going on. You need to release it. You don't bottle it up. But as I say, you don't say anything about the clients, you don't share names or anything, but you just release the emotion about what's happening.
I think that's so important. And I think that's really an important message for anyone in any kind of helping or healing profession. And most people in the helping and healing professions know that they should do that, and that they really must do that, but often don't have uh, the time to. And especially, I'm not sure how it is in Australia. I'm guessing it's not worlds better, but here in America, we're really pushed to, produce, 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 create, 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 consume, consume, consume. And even though you know that you should take care of yourself if you're in a helping or healing profession, it, it's something, I can't tell you how many colleagues I know that they're like, well, yeah, I know I should do that. I know, but you're not. The knowing of it does not count for the doing of it. And so I think it's really great that you make that part of your practice, because this is really truly heavy emotional work. And I'm sure you're walking into all different sorts of family dynamics and loose ends that could be really a lot to take on. And so I'm really thrilled that you have that, and that there is group support for the doulas there. That's wonderful to hear. Speaking of America, I know in America, when someone dies and is dying, the paperwork part, the bureaucracy part of it can be all consuming. And I know here, most companies only allow 3 days off, some five. I think now Facebook, after Sheryl Sandberg lost her husband, allows 10, because she realized after her husband died that whatever they were offering prior is just not enough. But let's say that, the average company allows off 3 to 5 days. I mean, I'm sure everyone sitting in this room has lost someone and knows that that's not really even enough time to make plans. So, and in America, there is a considerable amount of paperwork. So I read that you help with the paperwork, and I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about that, because that is one of those things that I think people don't know that they need help with that until it happens. In fact, I have a dear friend, Tommy, who, through no fault of his own, he's a federal agent, actually, but he's really good in a crisis. So he has walked, I don't know how many people through deaths, and a lot of what he does, just out of the kindness of his own heart, say, I know how to do the paperwork. I know how to talk to these companies and these mortuaries and the state. And so he takes that on, and oftentimes the family doesn't realize how much time and frustration that was going to require. So I'm really interested to hear you discuss how you help in that way, because again, I really think that that is something that most families don't understand that they're going to need help with until they're in it, really.
Definitely. There is a ton of paperwork that people don't realize that they need to have. And I can help with paperwork before, during, and after death, in that I can help people set up their end of life wishes before death. We have advanced health directive, which can basically identify what they want to happen with their health and medical wishes before they die. So if they want to have a certain level of medical care and end of health directives if they are dying, so if they want do not resuscitate directives and things like that put into place, I can also help them to draw up paperwork that says that they want to have this level of care in hospital situations. I can help them draw up paperwork to help them donate their bodies if they want them to be put in place after their death, things like that. So I can help with all of that before they die. During the dying process, I can also help them when they do pre-funerals. I can help arrange with the funeral directors if they want to do pre-planning of funerals. So I can go with them to the funeral home. I can help them pre-plan a funeral. I can help them do a funeral at home if that is what they wanted to do. I can help them set up their information there. The only thing I can't do is register their death. That must be done by the funeral director at the funeral home. That is something that is only allowed done by the funeral directors in Australia. That is their realm entirely. So that is a must that they must do. And then after death, I know by experience when my father died that the hoops that my mother had to go through when she had to transfer registrations and insurances and bank accounts and things like that. There is documents coming out of her ears with making sure things were transferred over. I can also help with going through to all the financial institutions. I am also a qualified accountant, so I have got experience with dealing with financial institutions and banks and insurance companies. So I can actually help with making sure all of the documents are transferred over and paperwork is transferred for titles of houses and things like that, that all the documents are signed and that the solicitor information is transferred over and that everything is done and lodged correctly so that it helps take the stress off of the partner that is left behind. Because when you're grieving, you don't think of all the things. And it's not until later that you think, oh, I forgot to do that. And there is a number of things that people don't realize is attached to something that should have been done but wasn't done until later down the track. And they think, oh, I forgot the registration for the car wasn't transferred over and it's still in the deceased person's name. And the car is now no longer registered. And they're pulled over by the police. And it's a terrible schmozzle because the car's been unregistered for a certain number of months because it wasn't sent to the right place or it wasn't remembered that it needed to be done. So I can help with all those sorts of things. So I can help before, during, and after death to make sure that things get done because, yes, there are things that you just don't think of because you're just so overwhelmed with grief that you've got other things to do and you don't want to, or you can't think about these things because you're in shutdown mode a lot of the time. And it's very confusing for the elderly to, a lot of the time, to think about what's going on in their lives, and they need the support. They just want somebody there to sit with them. And sometimes they are quite capable of doing it themselves, but they just want somebody there to support them while they do it. Sometimes they don't have a family member that's close by who can be with them, and they just want somebody to come and sit with them and have a cup of coffee with them while they do it themselves. They just need the support to do it. They don't necessarily need me to do it for them. They just want somebody there to support them while they do it. And I'm fine with that too.
Well, I need you. So I can tell you that I'm ready to move you in. Uh, until someone has gone through a close family member dying, and particularly if it's unexpected, as my death was, I don't think people have any idea how much of the bureaucracy there is to deal with, and how broken your brain is. Even if you wanted to do it, even if you are a capable rocket scientist, smartest person in the world, your brain does not function the same way if you have gone through a trauma or are in the fresh throes of grief. It just doesn't. I lost my daughter, as most people in this room know, unexpectedly. She died in her sleep of unknown causes. So my and I found her and tried CPR, and so there was a fair amount of trauma going on. I was fully aware that my brain was broken. I was fully aware that I couldn't do a lot of these things on my own, and I was lucky that I had support, but it was piecemeal because no one was expecting a 2-year-old to die. So it was sort of my friends walking in and going, "Oh, we better do this. Oh, okay, I'll do that." And I'm so grateful. But it would have been so helpful for anyone, I think, to have someone to come in and say, okay, this is what needs to happen first in a very calm way. And this is what needs to happen. And have we thought about this? And does this person have a bank account? And do they have this? And then, help the family help in that way, because the family is also affected. Perhaps not as much as the wife or the parent or the next of kin, but the other family members and friends are also affected. So everyone's brain's a little broken. So when you talk about this aspect of your work, Sharon, it really brought a tear to my eye, because that kind of work is so overwhelming. I remember there were so many people calling me, I overshot my text on my phone capacity, and I couldn't talk at that time. I could really only text. So I had to call AT&T and T and get a new plan. I was on hold with AT&T, and I remember sitting on my back steps thinking how stupid it was that I had to, it makes me cry just thinking of it, how stupid it was that I have to sit here on hold with AT&T 5 or 6 days after my daughter died and deal with something this trivial just so I can function in a world that I'm not really even sure I wanted to function in at that time. Thank you very much. So that part of your work is so important. And again, I just keep stressing that because I think until people go through it, they don't know how much they're going to need that. Dr. A, you had a question.
Yes, and I'm ready for both of you to move in with me, Melissa and Sharon.
I'm on
I
my
mean,
way, dear.
wow, this is just like, I never even thought of these things. I was just thinking, I moved last year. I moved about a year ago after 28 years with the same person. And I'm just thinking, oh, all the things I forgot just in a move. I can't even imagine if someone had died. But my question for Sharon is, uh, first of all, you sound amazing, and I really compliment you. I was wondering, all the things that you know how to do and that you can help people with, is that the same with all death doulas, or are you a super death doula? Because this sounds amazing what you're able to help people
I
with.
love you, Dr. A. She's a super death doula for sure, but I'm going to let her answer the question anyway.
Thank you. I wouldn't exactly call myself a super death doula. I think we all bring
It's
our
okay. We're going to
own.
call you that. You don't have to
I,
call yourself that.
we all bring our own experiences to the table. I think it depends on our own life experiences. As I said, I have an accounting background. I also did a counseling degree. So I have the ability to bring a certain set of skills to what I can offer those that I help. My sister, who also works with me in Victoria, she is a doula as well. She became a doula very recently as well. She got into becoming a doula because she saw how fulfilling it was for me, and she wanted to help people in the area in which she lives in regional Victoria. And she has a nursing background. So she will be able to bring a different set of skills to the clients that she helps in the areas that she's working in Victoria. So while I have a certain set of skills that I can help people that I help, she has a certain set of skills that she can help the people that she helps. So we all have different abilities, but yes, we do training. While there is not technically, you don't need to be trained to be a doula. There are schools and there are training courses that you can do to be doulas. I did a course to become a doula, and that was operated by a lovely lady here in Australia called Denise Love. And I did that actually during the pandemic. So I was very lucky to be able to do that with her just before we went into lockdown here in Australia. So that was very good for me. So I was very fortunate, but it also means that we all get to do different things with the skill sets that we have available to us. So what I can bring to the table might be completely different to what somebody else can bring to the table. So we are all different, which is good, because the world would be a very boring place if we were all like me.
I don't think the world would be that boring if it was all, if it was all like you, and it would probably be a lot nicer. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Sharon?
Hi, Sharon. This is just a comment, and I'm just going to chime in and say, I wish you could come and live with me as well. But I wanted to say, I think sometimes even when you think you're prepared for someone passing away, there's so many things at the end when they die, you cannot think of them all. And I wish we had someone like you. My husband and I cared for my stepmom for a couple of years, and she had a lung transplant and was in rejection. So we all kind of knew, that the end was coming. But when she did die, it really felt like things were just spiraling out of our hands. And we had a family friend that made some decisions that were not great. And we figured it out in the end. But I wish we had someone on the outside to just be an advisor in a calmer way. It would have been so helpful. So just thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you for that. That's really appreciated. I'll share with you the reason I actually became a doula was because my dad passed away 8 years ago. He had liver cancer. He was given a 18-month to live. We had him basically for that 18 months. He went through 3 rounds of chemotherapy, and then on the 2nd of June in 2014, he said he didn't want to take any more chemotherapy. He had enough, and he moved to palliative care. We asked him if he wanted to go home to die. He said no, he wanted to go to hospice, which we respected, because at that time we did not believe there was any other option available. And 21 days later, he died in hospice. I started this journey because I thought he should have died at home. I respected his choice to die in hospice, but I believe everybody should be able to die at home, surrounded by love, where they want to. And that's why I started this journey, because I want to support people so that they can do death the way they like to do it. He didn't want to die at home because he didn't want my mum to have to support him at home. And I don't think there was a support service like a doula that could have been there for my mum. And I wanted to change that. I'm sure there were doulas available in 2014. We just didn't know about them. And I just didn't know where to look. And it's sad that I didn't know about death doulas in 2014, because I would have fought to have him sent home. And I would have fought to find a death doula to be there, to give them the support that they needed. And that's the main reason I became a doula, so that I can support other people so they can go home and get the support they need in their home environment, because I think it's so important that they die in that environment, not in a hospice or in a hospital, in a clinical environment. Sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry, Sharon. I'm the host of the. I cry almost every week. Don't be sorry. It's a child loss chat. There's going to be tears, and the tears are never the problem, as I've said a million times. It's the not crying that causes the problem. It's never the crying. Crying doesn't hurt anyone. Doesn't hurt us. They're not poison. It's not contagious. So please don't be sorry. It shows the beauty of your heart, and it's a beautiful reason to get started. You know, a lot of what I'm doing now, I'm doing because it didn't exist for me when my daughter died. And I wish it had. And maybe some elements of it did, but I didn't know about them, and no one that knew me knew about them. So it's beautiful that you're doing this, and I really honor you. Mo and I have had a conversation on the show before about how this is probably the oldest need in the world, but I'm guessing in the Industrial Revolution, we became more and more separated from death within our houses and communities, and so the need seems new, but we've always needed support during death and transition. And so I think it's beautiful that you're part of that, and that we really need to humanize the dying process. Even if someone is in the hospital, even if they are in hospice or whatever, there's still there really still needs to be humanness. And I really honor you for being part of this movement. And I know Mr. JB has a question, so I won't keep rambling.
I don't really have a question. I just had something I wanted to add, as it would be the case when you bring me up, my doorbell rings and I'm taking a delivery. So I'm going to be brief with this. I had parents who I had to take care of through the last years of their life, and it was up to me to make sure that they had a living that was comparable to their life. The thing is, Sharon mentioned that the financial responsibilities of making sure that the those that are dead, their wishes are something that comes to fruition. That's a lengthy process. My grandparents raised me from birth, which means they were much older than I was. So they died a lot shorter time after I became an adult than if they were my parents. I had to take care of them for 2 years. And I didn't know that there was a term for it like death doula, but I was there in that house with both of them because they both had the same ailments: dementia, sundowner's disease, Alzheimer's, bedridden. I stayed there 24/7. After a while, I found out I could arrange through Catholic Charities to have someone come in a couple of days a week and give me a break so I could run errands, do grocery shopping, things like that. It is an excruciatingly long and lengthy process to get their affairs in order financially, and it took me 3 years after they died to get everything set up the way they wanted it set up. And it's even worse if your parents, in my case, my grandfather, was into finance and trading and stocks. So I had to do all that stuff. And it took a long while. So somebody like Sharon, who takes into consideration these things and does them for us who are trying to grieve, but we can't really possibly grieve totally because we're busy trying to work what's left of their legacy and not let it get stolen or squandered or scammed from us. And so my applause and gratitude goes out to Sharon and what she does.
Yes, absolutely. That's a beautiful gift that you gave your grandparents, Mr. JB. And you're right, being someone's primary caretaker at the end stages is a full-time thing. Here's a sentence I never thought that I would say, but Rob Lowe wrote a beautiful op-ed. I think it was in the Washington Post a few years ago about the secret toll that being a caretaker has on a person and how little help we have in this society for someone who is caring for someone with a disability or dementia or Alzheimer's or is at the end of life. I will try to find that and post it. It was really well done and brought a lot of attention to something that we don't talk about enough. Again, because we people don't like to talk about this. It's more fun to talk about sports and the Kardashians and gossip and shopping than it is the things that we will all have to deal with one day. But anyway, it was a great point. And I just wanted to add to that, Mr. JB, not only do people not have the time perhaps to deal with the financial aspects of the departed, most of us are still working ourselves. Most of us still have to keep our own roof up and take care of our own families and our own dependents. And that's a full-time job anyway, on top of whatever job we work. And then taking on the financial responsibilities for someone who's dying or departed can really start to make you feel like you can't breathe. So, really important work. I'm going to go to Mo, and then I'm going to let Sharon do sort of an overall address of these topics before we wrap it up.
Thanks, Melissa. My question is for Sharon. First of all, amazing work you're doing. Hats off to you. I was concerned about how did you have, or how do you have a list of the services that are needed to recommend? For instance, deed to the house, the car registration. Do you have a set something ready to go when you present your services, or is that just something that comes up naturally as you talk to your patient or your client? The other part of my question is, what happens when someone involved in the family, or heaven forbid, a friend, tries to block what you are doing or what you have been given? What legal standing do you have to fulfill the wishes of someone who's dying versus someone else's wishes, and they want to block you?
Great questions, Mo. Sharon?
I basically talk through with my client what they really want me to do for them. So if I am there purely as a doula and I am looking after them before death only, I can do just the doula care. If they are engaging me to look after any affairs and help them after death, I have a list of things that I can help them with after death. If I'm helping the rest of their family look after getting the rest of their affairs in order and helping the remainder of the family to put bank accounts in order and things like that, I can help people who are left their spouse or their partner who is left with whatever is left behind. I always make sure I get their permission for that. I always have that in writing. I only ever get anything signed. I have a contract that they both sign that make sure that it is binding. I do not do anything without full legal permission from everybody. I also make sure that the person that I am working with, who is the partner of the person who is deceased, is the actual power of attorney, or the legal personal representative is the person who is left behind, which means they are actually the legal person under the will to make the legal decisions of the person who has been left behind, so that there is no doubt that they are making the decisions for that person, so that there is no question that what is going to happen and what I am going to be doing if they have asked me to help with them to tidy up their affairs and change bank accounts, etc., registrations, etc., that what I'm being asked to help the partner with is actually what they are supposed to be doing, that they are allowed to do those sorts of things. That is the only way that I will do it, and I will be asked to do that. So I actually asked to see a copy of the enduring power of attorney before I actually undertake that task, to make sure that the person I will be dealing with is the person that I am working with. And most people in Australia have those documentation because, as I said earlier, it is important to make those wishes known so that other people can make decisions on your behalf.
That's amazing, Sharon, and thank you for that. I have one more question before we wrap this up. Most of us in here are bereaved parents. And so I wonder if you could just talk to us very briefly about how your work might change or might be affected by working with a family whose child is dying.
Death of a child is special. I have not had the privilege of working with a family whose child has been dying yet. I actually hope I do not have to deal with that for quite a long time. I expect when that day comes, it will be an emotional day, as it would be for the family who is dealing with it. It will be to offer support. I will be there to give the family support. It will be to offer other siblings of the child who is dying support. It is one where I see myself giving the family the ability to tell me what they need. They will have a whole realm of needs different to those of a family of an older person who is dying. What they need, they will obviously need to do things. They have obviously got possibly other children who needs other children picked up from school. They will need groceries bought. They will need other things done which need taken care of. So my needs will obviously be a lot different for that. So they will possibly need to spend time I will need to spend time doing other things. Like my role could be more of supporting the family more, where I am cooking, I am cleaning, I am picking kids up from school, I am doing grocery runs, I am doing a lot more of things in a supporting capacity so that the family and the parents get to spend more time with their child who is dying. Or I am sitting with the child who is dying so that the parents get to spend more time with their other children, going out and spending time with the others and other family members so that they can spend one-on-one time with the other children. Because I find even with older children and with family members, with people who have got older people who are dying, how do I say this? I'm probably not making sense here. When an older person is dying, children feel like, oh, you're spending so much time looking after grandma. You're not spending any time with us. You're always at grandma's. They tend to feel like they're not being spent time with anymore. You're always spending time with grandma. Why does you have to spend so much time with her all the time? They feel like they're being neglected. So I feel that I would be spending more time so that they are not being felt like they are being neglected as much. So I see my role as being a support for everybody in a whole capacity, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense, and everything you just said is really important, especially with the siblings and the other family members. When one sibling has a lengthy illness, it is very common for perhaps the other children to maybe honestly not get enough attention because mom and dad's, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, whatever the family looks like, they're strapped for time. They're strapped for money. Generally someone has to quit a job. There's just not as enough resources of their time. And so I think that's beautiful. Sharon, we're going to wrap it up here, but I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this work. It's such important work, and I want more and more people to know about it, and that it exists, and that they can find someone that does this. What you were talking about your dad and how you honored his wishes, although you had hoped better for him, and I think that is really common for all of us of a certain generation. Our parents only know how to do death one day. We did an episode a few weeks ago on natural burials and so forth, and we talked about the same thing. Sometimes people, quote, want it a certain way because it's the only way they know. They don't know that there's options, and if they do hear about the option, it seems so foreign and so complicated to them, when oftentimes it's easier and would bring more support. And so it's really my honor to have you on the show and bring these ideas and this potential to more people, because the work you're doing is vital and important, and we need it so much. And I'm deeply appreciative to you for doing the work and for coming on the show to talk about it.
Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be here this morning, and I appreciate your time this morning, and thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you to everyone for being here. I know that end of life and dying and death conversations aren't on the top of anyone's list of things that they want to talk about. But I do believe that when we are open about these topics and bring them into the light, we all live richer lives. And I appreciate every single person here, every single person listening, for being part of that. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining us today. For more information on the show or my other work, you can check out thisclubsucks.com or melissamariemonroe.com, or you can find me on Twitter at @MMeaning. May you experience some gentleness on your path today.